We have an insane trade report. The Knicks could look to add more depth to this roster before the trade deadline. Multiple NBA insiders have released reports on players the Knicks can target to improve this team. However, one insider mentioned the name nobody expected. He wants the Knicks to add former player Alec Burks back to this roster. We're also going to break down different trade scenarios the Knicks can explore to improve this team. We're going to break down all of these latest reports today. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and make sure you have notifications turned on. So that way, anytime we drop new content, you get notified. And now, let's get started. An NBA insider wants the Knicks to bring back a former player and add him to this team. I know the Knicks need to make another trade to improve this bench and add more depth to this team. However, the Knicks have limited assets, and because of that, they're also just as limited in the players that they can target via trade. But just because the Knicks need to make a move, they shouldn't make a trade just to make a trade. They should only do it if the right trade package is out there. However, NBA insider with The Athletic James L. Edwards recently released a number of different trade scenarios. And in one of those scenarios, he is basically pitching for the Knicks to make a trade just to make a trade. In fact, in one of these trade scenarios, he wants the Knicks to add former player Alec Burks back to this team. Let's break down these latest trade scenarios from NBA insider James L. Edwards. According to Edwards, it feels like New York's best chance to upgrade its roster is to rearrange the deck, adding smaller pieces around the margin in exchange for some of their smaller contracts and redundant pieces. The Knicks could use more wing depth as their starting wings, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Josh Hart, ranked first, second, and third in the entire NBA in minutes played. They could use an upgrade in the front court as well. And because of this, he is pitching the following trade scenario. Shout out to Edwards for giving us this following trade package. According to him, he wants the Knicks to trade with the Miami Heat so they can get Alec Burks and they can trade to the Heat Jericho Sims and a future set of second-round picks. Here's why Edwards wants the Knicks to make this trade. In this scenario, Burks comes back to New York to try to provide more shot creation and guard depth. Sims has been in and out of Tom Thibodeau's rotation, mostly out, and isn't necessarily needed with Achua, Hukporti, and Robinson in the building. Burks and Sims have identical salaries. This isn't a needle-moving trade by any means, but it changes the structure of the Knicks roster and brings back somebody who is familiar with the organization. Why the Heat would do this trade, according to Edwards. He states, I'm not sure they would, but Burks has only played in a little over 20 games for Miami. The veteran has good moments on offense when given the opportunity. He can still shoot the ball. If New York sweetens the deal with another second-round pick, maybe Miami considers it. The Heat only have 2 second-round picks at their disposal between 2026 and 2031. That's why if the Knicks threw out there Jericho Sims and a future second-round pick, or Jericho Sims and multiple future second-round picks, the Heat might bite on the opportunity and trade back Alec Burks to New York. Honestly speaking, I'm not a big fan of bringing back older former players. We're talking about younger players, maybe, but if they're much older, aging out of the league, I might not make this move. However, if you're telling me that Tom Thibodeau is not going to play any of the rookies, if you're telling me that New York, if they call up another player from Westchester, he's not going to get any significant playing time, and the only way we can improve this bench is if we add more players that Tom Thibodeau likes, respects, and trusts, only in that scenario would I consider making this trade and getting back Alec Burks. Because honestly speaking, we have rookies on this bench, if utilized, could probably give you a greater impact than Alec Burks. Or you could go to Westchester. You can sign TJ Warren. You can sign Chuma Okeke. You can sign Moses Brown. Getting the Knicks more size on this team, players that play defense and also can give you offense. I would rather the Knicks do that and still trade Jericho Sims for a couple of second-round picks. Because in that scenario, New York frees up a roster spot, frees up cap space, and still gets additional assets that they can utilize in different trades down the road. So in my opinion, that's a better move to make. But if Tom Thibodeau refuses to do any of that, refuses to play the G Leaguers, refuses to play the rookies, and he's only going to play experienced veterans, then I'm okay with New York making this move. Because in this situation, New York doesn't touch the 8 or 9-man rotation that Tom Thibodeau has access to. The only thing that we do is add another player to the rotation that Tom Thibodeau actually will utilize. And if that happens, the rotation will expand, and that means more rest for your starters. The bench plays more minutes, and then come the postseason, you have a healthy starting unit. You have less chance of injury, and potentially you have exactly what you need to make a strong postseason push to go all the way to the NBA Finals, the exact place the Knicks want to be after this season. It's not the greatest trade scenario out there. Clearly, there are other moves that we could make, but if this is a move where you can guarantee Tom Thibodeau will expand the rotation, he will utilize Alec Burks and will be able to rest our starters more, and we know this is the only way we can expand that rotation, you might pull my arm. You might convince me that this is the move the Knicks need to make. But even though this trade might be a move the Knicks could entertain, there is another trade scenario that Edwards is throwing out here that I do not want the Knicks to make at all. Because in this situation, the Knicks would end up losing multiple bench players for one player that would not help the Knicks get better, that would not move the needle. Honestly, I'm not sure why Edwards is pitching for the Knicks to make this trade. Let's take a look at exactly what this trade scenario looks like. In this trade, Edwards is pitching that the Knicks to receive Simone Fontecchio, for the Pistons to receive Bruce Brown in campaign, and for the Raptors to receive Precious Achiuwa and 3 future second-round picks, 1 from New York and 2 from Detroit. And here's why he wants the Knicks to do this trade. Fontecchio is under contract until the end of next season, and in theory, checks boxes left void on New York's bench, even though Fontecchio struggled this year in Detroit. The ripple effect in this scenario would be that Tom Thibodeau would have to rely more on the rookie guard Tyler Kolek to fill a backup backcourt minutes, and in the front court, unless Robinson returns to close to full health sooner rather than later, he'd have to lean on Jericho Sims or rookie Ariel Hukporti-Moore too. Giving up Payne here will be tough as he's shooting the 3-ball well, brings a different energy to the game when he's in, and is loved in the locker room. But New York really has no other choice but to trade him and Achiuwa to get above Fontecchio's $7.6 million salary. New York would also shed close to $400,000 by making this trade happen. Fontecchio's season hasn't gone like many in Detroit had anticipated, but it doesn't mean he's a lost cause. Basically, he's had no offseason. I think he'd slot in nicely alongside either Jalen Brunson or Karl Anthony Towns for the Knicks when head coach Tom Thibodeau starts to trickle in his bench into games. Assuming Fontecchio can get back into last year's form, I'd also not be worried about him closing games if one of the Knicks' wings is having a tough night. The Raptors make this deal because they're a rebuilding team, and to get to add 3 second-rounders for trading Brown would be essential. There is no way on this planet I am trading Cam Payne and Precious Achiuwa for one Simone Fontecchio. Pull back up that trade scenario so we can take a look at it again. So in this situation, the Knicks only receive one player in Simone Fontecchio, but we have to make a 3-team trade with the Pistons and the Raptors. We give the Pistons Cam Payne. We give the Raptors Precious Achiuwa and 3 second-round picks. Is it just me, or it feels like Detroit, they get better, they get Cam Payne after losing Jaden Ivey? The Raptors, they get better, they get more assets, they get back Precious Achiuwa, who, by the way, is having a great season for New York off the bench. He is a very good piece. He understands Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau likes him off the bench. This does not make any sense for New York. It helps the Raptors. It helps the Pistons, but it does not, I repeat, does not help the Knicks. Fontecchio is struggling this season. And even when he's not, he gives you a little bit of size, maybe some three-point shooting, but nothing else. And by the way, his defense is extremely shaky. He's not the best defender. And that means under head coach Tom Thibodeau, he's likely not going to play significant minutes. So why would the Knicks make this trade? One of the worst moves that they have made in franchise history if they end up making this move. Let's move on to another trade scenario that's a little bit more realistic. Maybe it's not a trade that I would want the Knicks to make, but at least it's realistic. Let's pull that one up. In this final trade scenario, Edwards proposes that the Knicks trade for Nick Richards, and in return, they give the Hornets Precious Achiuwa and 2 future second-round picks. Here's why Edwards wants the Knicks to make this trade for Nick Richards. The 7-foot Richards would provide a combination of size and physicality that New York misses at times with Robinson out due to injury. More than that, Richards just seems like the type of player that Thibodeau would love because of his aggressiveness and willingness to do the little things. Front office people I've talked to around the league view Richards as the more desired player in this deal. So New York would likely have to add some low-risk draft picks to try to get it done. I don't mean to keep including Achiuwa in every deal, as he's a solid NBA player. But his $6 million salary is really the only one that will allow the Knicks to make marginal tweaks around the roster, assuming New York has no interest in moving Miles McBride. Now, this trade for me is the most realistic because when it comes to Nick Richards, we've spoken about him at length for a number of videos now. In terms of realistic, because he's part of a tank team with the Charlotte Hornets, him and Jonas Valanciunas are the most likely targets to be traded to this team if New York goes out there and actually wants to entertain a deal. However, in this trade, though, they want New York to trade Precious Achiuwa for Nick Richards. And the main reason for that is the money makes too much sense, and it could be a straight-up trade without New York having to give up additional assets. That's why Edwards is proposing it here, because it's basically a swap for Achiuwa for Nick Richards. Achiuwa, who's on an expiring contract. We have no idea if he's going to re-sign with the Knicks or not. We don't know how he's going to look for the rest of the season down the stretch. And clearly, New York needs more size. We need a legit backup center. Nick Richards gives you that. He's 7 foot tall. He's under contract for the next couple of seasons. And also, he has a great relationship with President Leon Rose. So that means when it's time to re-sign, Leon Rose is going to work magic and get him to re-sign with this team, probably at a great contract, because that's all Brock Aller and this Knicks team understands how to do. Unless they know or have some type of insider information telling them that Precious Achiuwa is unlikely to re-sign with this team, he's unlikely to be part of this franchise after this season. In that situation, I wouldn't mind the Knicks making this trade, because if he's going to walk for nothing after this year, you might as well trade him. You already had him waive his no trade clause. So clearly you had it in the back of your mind that if an opportunity, if a trade scenario presented itself and it made sense, you would make that move. If you have that insider information knowing that Achiuwa is not part of this team long-term, you make this move. But if you believe Achiuwa is going to re-sign with this team, going to be part of this franchise for years to come, maybe you don't make this move. The only reason I say that is when you get traded to this team, it doesn't mean that what you did with the Hornets, you're magically going to do with the Knicks. If anything, Nick Richards might be the Precious Achiuwa of this team. Play the exact same minutes, have the exact same role, and maybe he might have the exact same impact. The problem is he doesn't have the same chemistry built with the starting unit, with the bench unit, or even with Tom Thibodeau. He's going to have to learn that. How long are we going to have to wait for Nick Richards to learn that? That's something we have to keep in mind. That's why with this specific trade scenario, I don't mind if the Knicks did it only if they knew Achiuwa was not long-term. In my opinion, the lowest cost addition move to make at this point is the first trade scenario that we saw from Edwards, and that's getting Alec Burks back to this team. It's not a move I want to make, but if you think about all the trades that we just reviewed, it's the one that makes the most sense. It's because Tom Thibodeau gets a Thibs guy back. Alec Burks knows the pressure of New York. He's played here multiple times before. He understands how Thibodeau wants to play. He knows what he needs to provide off the bench. He's a veteran in this league. So many different reasons why Burks makes sense for this team. It's not the move that I would want the Knicks to make. I said it before. Utilize your bench more. Utilize the rookies more. Go to Westchester and pick up one of those players. That's what I would rather the Knicks do than go after Alec Burks. But if the only way we can expand the rotation is adding Alec Burks back to this team, and there's no other way around it, then maybe just for this season, the Knicks make that move, and then maybe they flip Alec Burks again in the offseason for another impactful player we can add to this roster. Do not put it past Leon Rose. He has the tendency to make the impossible possible. So I believe in him, and I believe in this front office. No matter what direction they go, I will believe that that's the right move for this Knicks team. But what about you guys? What do you think about these several trade scenarios that James L. Edwards with The Athletic put out there for us to review and potentially for the Knicks to execute? Let me know in the comment section below, guys, which potential trade package is your favorite and the one that you would want the Knicks to pull the trigger on. Let me know in the comment section below, guys, because honestly, I would love to hear from you. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below. And of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knick fans, take care of yourself, your families, and each other. Peace and love.